Utah is looking at getting an early warning system for earthquakes. I'll show you how it would work straight ahead.
A beloved 97 link.
It was the morning most of us will not soon forget. 7:09 a.m., March 18th, 2020. An earthquake centered in Magna startled so many of our morning routines.
We continue our breaking coverage of today's news that woke us all up this morning, at least most of us, with a 5.7 earthquake. Our team of news specialists, as you can see, there's a lot of them. They've been covering almost every corner of the Salt Lake Valley as we continue to assess the damage and deal with the aftershocks.
Well, now Utah lawmakers are imagining what could have been done if we had advance warning of that 2020 Magna earthquake.
One representative is even asking the state for money to fund an early warning system to help predict earthquakes. News specialist Lindsay Ertz has been looking into this. Lindsay, what really would that system do?
Yeah, well, imagine this, you guys, a front-runner train traveling 80 miles an hour filled with people. If an earthquake happened, for example, in Brigham City, experts say that could give Salt Lake about a 16-second head start. And they want more sensors for this early warning system to even be able to integrate with things like front-runner to be able to stop that train in its tracks. Now, Representative Doug Owens made the ask this morning of a legislative committee for $5 million. He says the system could also integrate into things like gas or water pipelines to help shut them down in advance. The aftermath of the quakes is one of the big concerns. Now, right now, Utah has about 170 sensors in place around the Wasatch Front, and scientists at the University of Utah we spoke with say they need about 80 more to get this system up and running. They would also work to integrate this system with phone companies so people could be alerted on their phones.
We have sensors in place, but we don't have the connection. We don't have the system to notify, because you only get a few seconds warning when the first waves come and then when the dangerous waves come. So we need to have a system that connects those sensors to all the infrastructure users that can actually slow things down and stop it in those few seconds and make things safer.
Now, how much warning time could we actually get? In the case of that Magna quake we referenced, Salt Lake could have gotten about 2 seconds. Obviously, the closer to the quake you are, the less time you get. But for example, if a quake happened in Brigham City, the warning time for Ogden would be 1 second, Salt Lake would be 16 seconds, and Provo would be 33 seconds. Now, scientists are working with the USGS to be able to get some federal money for this as well, kind of help split the cost. They say if they can get that, the system could be up and running within 5 years. Coming up at 6:30, I'll take you into that seismology station, show you more about how these sensors work. Again, that's at 6:30. For now, live at 5, I'm Lindsay Ertz. Back to you.
Interesting idea. Lindsay, thank you. Also in the legislature.
KSL News at 6 starts now.
Good evening. Tonight, a Utah mother speaks publicly about her son's death for the very first time. Police say Gandhi was killed by his father last May.
His mom feels Utah's court system failed her family in how they weighed parent rights and child safety. KSL investigator Daniela Rivera reports she hopes a bill named for her son will help other families. Daniela?
Well, Mike and Deanie, our team has been reporting on concerns from Utah parents that claims in court of parental alienation are clouding custody decisions, potentially placing children in dangerous situations. That's what Ohm's mother was accused of before his father ended up with custody. A child at harmony with the world around him.
His name means peace. He really was peaceful from the very beginning.
Perceptive.
Beyond his years, I think, in wisdom.
Gifted.
He played 6 different instruments.
And protective.
He lived and he died protecting me and his sister.
Leah Moses is speaking publicly about her son's death for the first time, hoping tragedy will inspire action.
It needs to change now. There are kids who will today, tonight, tomorrow, this weekend, be abused. They're in situations where they can't get out.
Leah's 16-year-old son, Ohm Gandhi, was killed last year by his father, Parth Gandhi, who police say then took his own life. a horrific ending to a child custody case that dragged on for years.
I don't think that anyone ever believed it would be this bad, even though this happens across the country.
Now she's urging Utah lawmakers to support this bill seeking to boost training for judges.
What domestic violence is, what coercive control means.
The proposal would take other steps, she says, to codify best practices and keep the focus on child safety.
I think there are abuses that are happening.
Bill sponsor Senator Mike McKell says his reform bill would also include that judges in child custody cases consider evidence of domestic violence.
To recognize science, best standards, best practices, it's stuff that's recognized in the medical community and the medical literature.
Leah was on the same Capitol steps last year before her son died, advocating for similar changes. This time, the proposal is being called Ohm's Law.
I mean, his name means peace, and that's really what this is after, to try to bring more peace to families, and especially to children.
Opponents of this bill say it's an overcorrection that could exclude important evidence from these cases. These critics include a family law attorney who represented Ohm's father. He wrote to lawmakers urging them to vote against the measure. A hearing has not yet been scheduled, but our team is following this issue closely. Mike and Deanie.
Yeah, hopefully doing something to better protect these kids. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it, Danielle. Longtime law here in Utah prohibiting 16
line with research. Plus, Utah lawmakers are hoping to get funding for technology that could be life-saving for Utahns in the event of an earthquake. All of this coming up when KSL-5 News returns.
You're watching KSL News at 6.
Utah is looking to get an early warning system to help predict earthquakes.
A lawmaker is asking the legislature for funding. News specialist Lindsay Ayers shows us how it would help.
Well, if you can imagine a front-runner train full of people traveling 80 miles an hour in Salt Lake City and an earthquake struck in Brigham City, experts say that train would have 16 seconds before the earthquake struck Salt Lake. And the system, the early warning system, could even stop the train automatically.
When the earthquake comes through, they have a little mass, so it shakes that. And even for really small earthquakes, we might not feel it, but the mass and the seismometer will.
This is just one of the 170 sensors buried throughout Utah that help notify the University of Utah seismograph stations when an earthquake has happened.
So now we can identify and locate an earthquake within minutes. If we upgrade our telemetry and add more stations, then it would be a matter of seconds.
And Dr. Emily Morton, research scientist, says the difference between minutes and seconds could make all the difference in saving lives.
You have fires, you lose access to those utilities for months. And if that's something we can prevent in the short term, that makes coming back from the earthquake damage better.
One Utah lawmaker from Mill Creek is asking the legislature for $5 million to help fund an early warning system for Utah.
It would be putting seismometers, probably 80 more. That would be around a 20-kilometer spacing.
That system could then integrate with things like gas, water, and electrical utilities, plus network with phone companies so people could be alerted on their phones.
It's mostly throughout that little box for the Wasatch Front, because we do have a lot of stations along the fault, but not as you move outward from that, and there are big faults there too.
Representative Doug Owens says there's more than enough reason to fund this.
You think about the loss of life that could occur in a train, in that train situation where you're able to slow down a train and not have it go off the tracks at 80 miles an hour. That could save hundreds of lives. That's worth $5 million.
And Dr. Morton says that with the help of additional federal money to supplement, the system could be operational within 5 years.
Our geologists see the need for it. The science is there. The connectivity through the internet is there to help in this situation. So it's something we ought to be thinking hard about.
The last big earthquake was probably 200 or 300 years ago. So yeah, it could happen at any time, probably sooner than 1,000 years. But yeah, we don't know.
So how much warning could we actually get? Well, experts say if a quake struck in Brigham City, Ogden would get 1 second, Salt Lake would get 16, and Provo would get 33 seconds. In the case of that Magna quake, Salt Lake would have gotten a 2-second head start. For KSL-5 News, I'm Lindsay Ayers. Back to you.
All right, Lindsay, thank you. Utah Representative